Okay guys, so I was just thinking of doing videos on like care sheets and just talk a little bit about species that I have. This is so that anyone who is planning on getting that particular species will just get a quick overview on that species. If you think that's a good idea or something that I should continue, you can just post it down in the comments and I'll continue making them if you find them useful or you think they'll be useful for others. So I'm just going to be talking about the information that I found on different sources. Like I searched through different websites and videos on YouTube based on that species, and I compile all the information and like make a conclusion, and also based on my experience keeping the species. So I'm just going to talk about the species that I have because I have the experience in them. Yeah, whatever I say has basically just worked for me over the years. But if you guys think that you have done anything else, you can just post it down in the comments and I'll probably take that into consideration for caring better for my teas. But anyways, the first species that I'm gonna talk about today would the would would be the Brachypelma classy. So let's just talk a little bit about this species. So as mentioned, their scientific name is the Brachypelma classy. They're of the Brachypelma genus. Their con I can't speak right now. Their common name is the Mexican pink beauty. So let's move the camera a little. As you can see, that is pretty much why they call this the Mexican pink beauty. They have really nice pink colorations on their legs, as well as pink hairs on their abdomen. So this species of tarantula did not have many previous names. It was just from the genus Brachypelmides. So it was pretty much called the classy since the beginning, from what research I've done. So these guys are basically terrestrial species, which basically means they are ground dwelling, they don't climb. So you wouldn't want to have too big of a gap between the substrate and the top of your enclosure, just in case they decide to climb up, because terrestrial species, they have pretty large and heavy abdomens, so if they fall from a distance, they can actually rupture the abdomen and die. It happened once with one of my Grammastola roseas. So being New World species, these guys have urticating hairs, so if they feel threatened, they will kick their hairs and will cause some irritation to your skin. And these guys, as their name states, they're basically from Mexico. They come from the north of Acapulco, which is basically a city in Mexico on the Mexico's Pacific coast. Not too much research has been done on this species based on their venom, so since they're an old world, it's assumed that their venom is probably mild, but will definitely still cause pain when you get bit, so yeah. So these guys are one of the larger Brachypelma species. They get to a leg span of about 7 inches. And females, they typically weigh up to about 50 grams, whereas males, about 45 grams. Unlike many of the Brachypelma species out there, these guys are quite nervous and skittish. Many times they're actually active during early mornings and early evenings. Many people would recommend Brachypelma species as a beginner tarantula, but yeah, I'm not gonna go against that. But Brachypelma classis, on the other hand, because they're skittish, I wouldn't really recommend it for the beginner. I mean, if you are, how do I say, if you're ready for them, why not, right? You can just get them. But from many of the resources that I've read, the Brachypelma classy is, people claim to be really on the laid back side and pretty docile, but I will show you mine. This girl would pretty much find any way to kill me. As you can see. Okay, now today she's being pretty docile. She's giving me a little, okay, there we go. Just bit the pen. Sorry girl, just for the video's sake. But as you can see, not a very good species for handling. However, she has not kicked hairs at me before. And the growth rate of these guys are not too quick, pretty medium. Some sources say that they grow slow, but if you feed them more, they'll probably grow quicker. Just as other Brachypelma species out there, these guys are listed in Appendix 2 of CITES. For those who do not know what CITES is, it basically stands for the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. So that applies to all Brachypelma species. This is because, as you can see, the Brachypelmas, like this one, are very beautiful, right? So that has caused high rates of trafficking in tarantulas in Mexico due to the values played on such tarantulas in the pet trade, especially the Brachypelmas. So with that, a lot of captive breeding has been done. So it has quite minimized the wild-caught specimens, although there are definitely still wild-caught specimens out there, which I do not recommend you guys getting, because wild-caught specimens, some of them do well in captivity, but I've known some that didn't do very well. Plus, many of them do contain parasites and mites that you do not want transferred to your other teas. Okay, now for the keeping of this species in captivity. Okay, I'm really sorry if this video is a bit boring. The spider doesn't do much, like, apart from being shy and biting my pen. But anyways, when you're keeping the species in captivity, you will want the temperature to be about 70 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. You can do that by controlling the temperature in the surrounding of your room. Do not use any heat lamps, do not use any heat pads or heat tape or whatever heating source, because these tarantulas, they're considered cold-blooded. So whatever heat source that they get, they will go to it and potentially burn themselves. If you were to use a heat pad under your enclosure, these guys are terrestrials, so they will burrow down. When they burrow down, they feel the warmth beneath the enclosure and they'll just sit there, not knowing that they're actually burning themselves. So the humidity, you'll want to keep that between 55% to 80%. Of course, higher would be better because it would help them molt. But if your humidity is like 55% or around there, you can increase the humidity by spraying down some part of the substrate. And if you have humidity issues, you wouldn't want to use criticipes like this, because as you can see, water will evaporate up. So these criticipes have holes all around the top. so your water is going to evaporate really quickly. So if you want to increase humidity, when you spray, you will want to use plastic containers or plastic tubs and drill holes at the sides, so it takes slightly longer for the water to evaporate up, hence maintaining the humidity in the enclosure. So the enclosure size, this applies to pretty much all tarantulas, I would say. So the minimum enclosure size you would want would be 3 times the leg span of your tarantula. So this tarantula is about 4 inches. So you will want quite a decent size enclosure for them to walk around. You also do not want too large of an enclosure because they can get stressed. Tarantulas in the wild, they live in burrows, tightly squeezed in there, so I would say that smaller is way better than bigger in this case. Also, when you keep them in large enclosures, they will find it more difficult to capture their prey. Of course, you can like grab prey and drop it right in front of them, but yeah, you get the point. So for the Brachypelma classy, you will want to keep the substrate more on the dry side. You can of course spray down 1/3 of the enclosure just to maintain humidity and for them to get a drink. And you can also put a water dish. I mean, I do. I didn't use water dish previously, but some of you have recommended me to use them, so I just got bottle caps and placed it at one corner of the enclosure. I do occasionally see them crawl over and drink water out of the bottle cap. But when you do use bottle caps or any water dishes, you will want the water to be clean always. That is because you do not want bacteria growth that could potentially harm your tarantulas. I have noticed that a lot of them, when they eat, after they eat, they roll their food into this white ball mush thing, and they tend to drop it in their water bowl. And then the next day or the following day, you will get maggots in there. So that's not something that you want. You can use a hide in your enclosure for them to feel more secure. You can use pretty much anything. Just something that won't mold up or get soggy. I know some people who use toilet paper rolls, which I do not like because they get soggy after a while and they just don't look really good. But for me, as you can see, I don't really use hides. Not that I'd recommend you guys not to use hides, just how I do it. And they've been fine for years, so yeah, I might use hides when I rehouse them to larger enclosures. But as for now, in these critter keepers, I just prefer it plain. Now, feeding. Feeding these guys, you can pretty much feed them any insect that isn't too large or any insect that would potentially hurt the spider. So as slings, you can feed them fruit flies, you can feed them pinhead crickets, mealworms, chopped up superworms, or cockroaches. It really depends and it's really up to you. For me, for little slings, I feed them chopped up mealworms or baby Turkestan cockroaches. So since this girl has eaten 2 days ago on Sunday, you can check out feeding video number 10. I'm just going to feed her a mealworm to demonstrate. Hopefully she'll eat. Yeah, she's not hungry. But anyway, you can feed them mealworms. They like it. And I usually feed them cockroaches. But, oh, there we go. She got it. Bonus feeding video for you guys. But I usually feed my teas cockroaches. If you guys have watched my previous feeding videos, I just feel like they, especially turkey sun cockroaches, they give more stimulus to the tarantula because they tend to run around, so it gives the tarantula the ability to chase it down and grab it. So how often you would feed them? Well, many keepers, different keepers, they feed their tarantulas really not on a schedule and really randomly. But for me, what has worked for me is slings, like newborn, less than an inch. I usually feed them small cockroaches or tiny mealworms 1 to 3 times a week. Okay, some of you may think that 3 times a week is a lot, but when you're feeding them small meals, I believe it should be fine. I mean, I haven't got any troubles doing that before. As for juveniles, which is once they reach above 1 inch, I feed them 1 to 2 a week. Moving on to subadults, I feed them once a week, like this girl. She's a subadult, so I just feed her once a week. On, like today, for example, today's an exception. Just for this video, I just fed her 2 mealworms, which I have no idea where the other mealworm went. Oh well. But yeah, once they reach adulthood, you can feed them once every 2 weeks to once a month. They could go months and months without food, even over a year without food. Not that I recommend it, but yeah, they can go really long periods of time without food. However, you will always want to have water available because tarantulas, they need water to pretty much move. Without water, their legs will get weak and they're just not going to be able to thrive as well. So you'll always want to have a water dish in for them to drink if you're not feeding them. But anyways, that's pretty much what I can just think of when it comes to keeping these tarantulas in captivity. If anything else you would like to know, you can just post it down in the comments. But once again, I'm really sorry if this video was really boring, just me talking. But yeah, if you think I should do other things, you can just post it down in the comments. Anything you like, just post it down in the comments. I read every single one of your comments and I try my best to reply all of you. Yeah, that has been the Brachypelma Classy, just a simple care sheet and a brief explanation on their origin and just about them. So yeah, once again, thank you guys for watching. I'm terrible at ending videos, but yeah, I'll catch you guys later. I'm planning to do the same thing on other species. Hopefully not so boring, but you never know. It's probably going to be like this anyways. But yeah, I think it's pretty informative because I am taking the effort to go and research it, so I'm also learning. But yeah, if you think this is a good idea for future videos, do let me know. Take care, guys.